Fisher-Price. Our next guest is the CTO of the company behind some of the most iconic toy brands in history. Looking at how technology has played a huge role in this, we're joined by the CTO of Mattel alongside the chief executive of a fast-moving kid tech platform, which reaches millions of children across the world. Please welcome to the stage, in conversation with Leah Hunter of Fast Company, Superawesome CEO Dylan Collins, and Mattel CTO Sven Gerjets.
In the 1970s, Hot Wheels made head-to-head action an instant classic. Now in 2018, we're bringing it into the future with Hot Wheels Augmoto. It's classic powered racing with smart device technology that puts all the control right in your hands. Featuring augmented reality, bringing video gameplay to track racing. Choose your race, then place the cars in the charging blocks. The countdown is on. Ready, set, go!
Let's talk about that more.
Oh. Hi. Thank you all for being here so early. I appreciate it. Sven, Dylan, it's a pleasure to have you here. And Dylan, it totally makes me laugh. The way Chris just announced you, he announced your company as Superawesome, which it is, but what does that mean?
Well, also I should say that when he announced that, he was so enthusiastic that it made me spit out the mouthful of water that I had at the time. So that's why I look a little damp. So Superawesome is we build technology that allows companies to safely engage with under 13s around the world. So we build privacy-based technology that allows developers, content owners, brands to safely have some sort of interaction with kids whilst making sure they're kept completely safe and completely anonymous online. So we operate in a sort of a newly emerging space that has been coined kid tech.
Great. And the nature of the conversation that we're going to have here, I'm asking for an overview of what everyone's up to, but then we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about kid tech, technology in toys, and also privacy. So I'm glad you brought those up. Sven, hi. You seem really far away right now.
Sorry.
That's okay. You are the CTO. You snuggle. It's good. You're the CTO of Mattel.
Yes.
Not too many toy companies right now, aside from startups, have CTOs, and I imagine that's going to change. What does your role entail? What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, pinch me. How do you become a CTO of a toy company, right? Total dream. But we had a CEO join from Google early last year, and she came in and obviously recognized right away that Mattel needed to lead with a strategy around technology, and technology needed to be a key strategic pillar for the company. And so what we've done is we've consolidated technology across the company, including IT, connected products, privacy, security, in a way that we can really help drive the company forward in this kind of not so new era of technology, influencing the way companies operate and the way companies deliver products to their consumers.
Well, one thing that I really appreciate, I'm going to read this because I read a statement by Mattel's CEO, and it was talking about the importance of play on a child's cognitive, social, and emotional growth. And play in a digital way is ostensibly different than play in a physical way. Is there a way in which you're bridging those two things?
Absolutely. I mean, Mattel's core DNA is in physical play as a way to develop kids through all ages and stages of development. And part of what drew me into the company is the shift of kids becoming more glass-based, right? Digital natives, prying them off of the screen is very difficult. And I think they're losing some aspects of development because of that, whether it's direct social engagement or other cognitive skills. And so my view is that the physical play is actually super important. What we have to do is figure out a way to make it engaging enough for kids that have grown up as digital natives. And keep them active, keep them playing. There's so many benefits. I mean, you name the benefits of keeping kids active, right, off the couch, off the screen, engaged with experiences like that. And so our focus is exactly that. How do we make that physical play not go away, make it compelling?
I really appreciate that. Just to speak to the audience, how many parents do we have in the audience? A fair number. And how many people do we have that remember playing with Hot Wheels when you were little?
Wow. That's some brand recognition right there.
All right, which speaks to both of these things. Like, so we have an audience that's very much aware of this as an issue and of the value of physical play. Also, you should know that Sven sent in a box of Hot Wheels. They are somewhere in this space, and at some point they'll be given out, I assume?
I think they may actually be given out at a future talk today, which all of you can come to around privacy with kids.
Cool. Well, you know, Dylan, what would you add to that? Thinking about toys and technology, in what way is Superawesome addressing that beyond just, you know, like platform privacy focus?
Right. Well, I mean, I think for us, it's you know, the reason we started the company was to, you know, actually build out an ecosystem of tools for developers who are building and for toy companies who are building sort of digital services, you know, for kids to actually use. And we think about that in terms of, you know, creating tools that make it easier to build privacy-focused apps to make sure that kids' personal data isn't being captured. And we also have a design philosophy called responsibility by design, where we're trying to add in more features like, you know, being able to give kind of screen curfews and things like that, so that, you know, developers and companies and brands can create great, amazing, but also responsible digital experiences for kids.
And you said that backstage. We were talking about Silicon Valley historically being very young, not a lot of kids. It's evolved, and how this is, you know, tech and toys is not a trend that is going away.
Right.
And I think both of you are testament to that. Can you speak to that a bit more? Like, how are you approaching that moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, for us, you know, the reason we're partnering with a company like Superawesome is trust is paramount. We have to maintain the trust of parents, and we have to do everything in order to maintain that trust. When we look at digital, kind of digitally enhanced plays, the way that I'm looking at it now, it's very different than what we've seen in the past, where companies are putting technology into toys, and they're creating toys for either big kids like me or little engineers or something like that, right? They're putting a lot of tech into toys, and they're creating these experiences that appeal to some kids. And so part of what we're looking at as a company is how do we actually take classic physical play patterns like the track that they showed on the video and enhance it with digital so that the price points stay aligned to what parents are willing to pay. The play patterns are things that kids like, but we digitally enhance them in a way that creates that engagement. In doing that, all of it has to be done with security in mind at the beginning, privacy in mind at the beginning, because those are kind of the new issues of today's, you know, play experiences. We've got to protect and we've got to continue to build the trust of parents.
Well, but there's also another issue that I'm sure anyone who's ever built a product would think about. You know, you're working with Moore's Law, and you're working with technology that's constantly advancing. You're also working with the fact that kids break stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, I dropped it. Oh, I've had it 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. What now?
Yeah.
How do you manage for longevity of products?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one of the issues with really high-tech toys and toys that were created with tech, you know, for tech's sake, is that they have a long lead time to develop, and you're all in. It's fail slow and fail late if you're going to fail. And we really had to figure out how do we pivot a cycle where we're developing physical goods, but doing it in a way that we create the digital kind of compelling experience. And part of what we had to do is figure out kind of less expensive ways to embed technology. So vision recognition is a great example, right? With vision recognition, you can create kind of quick, compelling, minimum viable products that you can't really do when you're creating, you know, a million or, you know, millions of die-cast cars or millions of Barbie dolls or something like that. And so we've had to figure out a way that we kind of have a, you know, kind of a dual mode delivery plan and delivery cycle. We also test a lot in physical testing still. So kids test, in-home tests. We have play laboratory tests, because the other thing is fun is a heck of a lot harder than you would think, believe it or not. It was a surprise to me.
Well, I mean, I would like for you to, I'm kind of a geek, I would like for you to elaborate more on the other technologies that are really helping you like try and fail fast. Because just before this, I was doing some research and I read online that the CEO, I believe, or some other higher up in Mattel talked about the fact that you must have a 3-year plan before you introduce any product, and you've got an 18-month development cycle, which, that makes sense. But if you're talking about accelerating that and making things last longer, what else are you using to do it?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing that we're doing, there's technologies that we're embedding, but one of the big shifts that we've made is around a platform mindset, right, and reuse. Because one of the gaps in the past is when we've built products, we've built the tech stack with the product. And so, we launched natural language processing toys in the past, Hello Barbie and the Hello Dream House. And when you're launching the technology with the product, it really extends the time. And so what we've been focused on is how do we bring the tools in the toolbox so that we can actually drive the digital kind of experiences faster, and we can ring fence the innovation a little bit around things that we're capable of delivering. So from a geek standpoint, some of the technologies that we're embedding in our toolkit, definitely vision recognition. Augmented reality is going to be huge. Augmented reality is a great way to create compelling digital experiences at no additional cost, other than the tech, right? No additional cost in the product. Natural language processing, I think, will continue to evolve. In natural language processing, it probably becomes more about how do you integrate some of these great products, like the Alexa Dot for Kids that was just launched, or Google Home or Apple products into the experience versus creating our own. The RFID space, the near field communication space, is really interesting because you can take a 10-cent chip, but create an experience that is actually a platform and can scale. So lots of things we're doing. We're leaning less into how do we put AI into a toy, more into how do we make a toy compelling through digital.
I love that. I just published my second book about augmented reality, and what's interesting about what you just said, I definitely believe in it as a technology, but I've never been interested in tech for its own sake. It's always about can and does it actually help people, and that's, to my mind, the only value. Thank you for all of that. I want to switch the conversation a little bit to digital privacy and security. Because, what's great about this conversation is, while you might think that you guys are on opposite sides of things, like anti-pro tech, it's not that at all. It's you're actually together in making sure that we're moving toward our most powerful, positive future for kids. So what are the conversations that are happening in the US versus Europe that are shaping your thinking around digital privacy?
Well, I think sort of there's been this huge kind of realization over the last couple of years that, oh shit, there are children on the internet, and there are lots and lots of children on the internet. And actually, if you start to look at the numbers, like, in the US every day there's about 10,000 new kids coming online. In Indonesia there's about 14,000. In China there's about 50,000 kids discovering and using the internet for the first time every single day. And, most of what we have thought about in terms of services and tools and ecosystem has always been built, kind of by us, for us, right, rather than sort of for children. So what's happening at the moment in Europe is really interesting, where, a lot of the EU has come together and sort of said, okay, we're going to try and sort of, change the landscape, and we're going to try and have sort of a digital privacy umbrella for children up to 16 to try and get to this point where kids can have sort of a zero data internet experience, so they can have access to internet without having their personal information being captured. And I think that's definitely sort of the future of where this is going. The US, somewhat ironically, set the standard originally with law called COPPA, which was based around the digital age of a child of 13. But now we are seeing this sort of shifting up towards 16. And in fact, even China, which is not a country you would expect to think about digital privacy too much, has introduced digital privacy law for kids at the age of 14. So there's this whole new wave of laws protecting children and data that's emerging, which is really interesting. And Europe is sort of edging out ahead of the US.
Practically, what does that mean? Does that mean, like, I download apps for my daughter? Does that mean that there would be back-end encryption of her username, does that mean that her photo would never appear online? What does that look like?
It means, like, I mean, you think about the internet. If you go to sort of a web page right now and it loads up, there's a whole bunch of tech behind the scenes that's sort of dropping cookies and capturing personal information on you and, let's say, figuring out what ad to serve you based on all the data that it has. It basically means that things like that are simply, not allowed now for kids that are under the age of 16. So they have to have essentially an anonymous browsing experience.
Got it.
And when you look at the millions and millions of pieces of data that are being collected on us every time we fire up an app or a site, that's not a safe environment for kids. So I think that any of the parents in the audience who have kids who are sort of 4, 5, and 6, even though it's easy to kind of read a lot of horror stories about what's going on, they're actually growing up in a gradually safer and safer environment because of all the investment that's being made here.
I agree with that. Like, I have no fear around that. My daughter is almost 8. She is definitely a digital native.
Right.
And I appreciate that this is happening. I'm not surprised that Europe is leading the way. But I am curious about how a big company like Mattel thinks about and approaches that in your product design and in your strategy.
Yeah. I mean, I think, when we look at the space, tech is here to stay, right? 70% of kids under 3 use tablets. And therefore, if we don't embrace it, it's going to embrace us, right? And maybe in not so positive of a way. And so the way that we look at it is, number one, we bring the DNA of play. We bring the DNA of how do we make things compelling. We believe that that's important and that we need to keep kids playing with physical products. In order to do that, we have to make them compelling with digital in an appropriate fashion. And so when we're doing that, if we don't keep trust, we're going to lose the parents' faith. So we approach this from the perspective of a privacy and security by design perspective. We are very rigorous around pen testing and managing our third parties. We're working on a bug bounty program right now to do bug bounties with other companies around our products so that we can actually pay hackers for finding things in a controlled fashion. And so we're really focused on how do we do it, and how do we do it in a way with the bottom line, keeping the trust of parents and continuing to be their trusted partner. It's critical for us. We have to do it.
Cool. I'd never heard the term bug bounty before.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. And I read earlier that in 2016, which are the latest numbers, the most popular toy category, which was a $1.7 billion category in sales, is still outdoor and sports toys, which kind of surprised me given the amount of digital activity that kids are doing. Mm-hmm. But physical play, it still really matters.
Yes.
So my question for you is, who do you see in the world that is doing the integration of digital and physical really well? Like, who do you find inspiring or interesting, maybe emerging?
I think there's a few companies out there. I think on the digital side, there's a lot of little startups that are starting to really think about, and some of them are kind of coming from a STEM perspective, but I think they're probably going to end up pivoting over time. But they're really thinking about, well, what does that interface have to look like between digital and physical? And does it even, like, some of the most interesting companies I've seen aren't even looking at digital. They're looking at actual new physical experiences.
Well, shout them out. Like, specifically, who are they?
Well, I like companies like Kano over in the UK, which actually is kind of contradicting my point because they're a little bit of both. We were talking about a few of the toy company startups earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, I like the companies that really figure out how to enhance play with digital and make it interesting to a broader swath of kids. So, one of the things around STEM is if it's a little engineering toy, it doesn't appeal. So the companies that we work a lot with that I really like, Sphero is a great example of a company that's taken really interesting tech toys and broadened them out into the education space. Companies like Osmo, which is a group of Google visual recognition folks that have created kind of an integration between visual recognition and play. Companies like Tinker, who we're partnering with Barbie to inspire lots of girls around programming. In a way that doesn't feel like it's STEM. It's fun.
Actually, I should shout out Roblox as well, who are sort of building, a game engine for young game developers, which is absolutely amazing. And the growth there is just phenomenal. I think they're a great example.
Yeah. I love that you've made girls in STEM a priority. You mentioned the Barbie stuff backstage, which I think is awesome.
And it's this is a huge area for us because one of the things that I recognize quickly is that we have these brands that are super compelling and inspiring. And with Barbie, we can take little girls that want to be a roboticist or a veterinarian or just like Barbie or like gaming and get them into a programming curriculum using the Tinker platform, which we're launching. We launched with our code, but we're launching 8 additional. I think I got cut off.
Yeah, we just got cut.
That's a great example.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.